Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season. Major League Baseball, golf, the NBA, and NHL playoffs especially. All the latest stats, news, and scores are available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. Are you looking for a higher potential return on your savings? Turn to our sponsor, Save. As an SEC-registered investment advisor, Save safely combines the best parts of saving and investing with its Market Savings program. Market Savings is a savings product that provides you with market returns instead of interest. The returns come from diversified investment portfolios based on your individual investment profile. The return from the investments is paid to you at the end of the selected investment term. But investing comes with risk, right? Well, with Save, your deposit is FDIC insured and never used for any investments. The current variable APYs are 9.07% for the 1-year product and 7.9% for the 5-year product. So what does this cost you? Well, Save only charges a fee when your investments make you money. To learn more or to sign up, visit www.joinsave.com/state. That's joinsave.com/state. The link to the website is in the description of this podcast. State of State invites you to join Save. State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today.
Hi, guys. Remember how yesterday I was talking about how there was low activity during the spring transfer portal window and that mass exodus never happened? It happened. There are now officially 8 Penn State players that have gone into the transfer portal during the spring transfer portal window, and some of them got their names in under the wire, apparently, late Tuesday, and then there's this filing and processing period that has to take place. That's why this all broke roughly between 2 and 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, so we're doing this episode here. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and rate us. Check us out on X, Instagram, and Pod at State of State Pod. On TikTok. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why I say it like that. Anyway, there's a lot to get to here, Justin, because it seemed like as of yesterday, I put out a show just kind of reflecting on the fact of Keandre Lambert-Smith, Malik McClain, and Devon Townley Jr. into the portal. And there had been this assumption that after the blue-white game that potentially 12 players could go into the portal for Penn State because of the scholarship situation, where you and I have discussed this, and there's some great information from Blue White Illustrated's Nate Bauer out there about how NIL has really affected that, and that it's like, yeah, you don't need the scholarship if you can still pay the guy. But now you have 8 total players that have gone into the portal, and especially the names that went in yesterday, I think surprised some people. So you have safety King Mack, wide receiver Malik McClain, running backs London Montgomery and David Kency, and offensive lineman Golden Israel-Achumba. Let's start with King Mack, because that was certainly a surprise. I'm just genuinely confused by this one, Justin, because King Mack seemed to have a lot of potential, a lot of ability. The coaching staff liked what he was capable of. We had Alan Zamitis on this show a while back, and he spoke glowingly of what King Mack could be at Penn State. And when you look at the 3 starting safeties for Penn State, Jalen Reed, KJ Winston, and Zakee Wheatley, 1, injuries happen. 2, Reed's a senior. Winston Jr. is a junior. Zakee Wheatley is a redshirt junior. So the likelihood of all 3 of those guys being here in 2025, low. Penn State's going to play 3 safeties, so you probably will see the 4th, King Mack, out there. Make this make sense.
Because the best evaluator of your situation is typically you, right? And it's like you have to look in the mirror every single day. So you go to practice, you understand who's getting rotations. Like it's always funny in the NFL, you kind of know who's going to get cut. Or on Friday, we have an internal thing of saying when they put up the depth chart of kickoff return, whoever like the third person is on L1 or R1 is going to be inactive on Sunday, just based on how things trickle down. So like when you're seeing that from a standpoint, like let's say a King Mack, and he's transitioning and he's fighting for a position to move up, and then they bring in two transfer corners, one that has safety ability, and then another corner like AC jumps up and takes that spot, and you start seeing where you fit within the whole picture. And it starts to look grim on in the sense of like jumping on the field. And I think in this day and age of college football, every college football player or athlete should be aiming to get on the field. Whether it's like top level quarterbacks, whether it's high level skill people, like the benefit of being on the field outweighs anything else beyond development. Because when these situations happen where you want to jump into the transfer portal, it's extremely hard to have any value or maneuverability if you don't have any film. At that point, you're just kind of an unproven, I don't know what it is type of prospect. And then it's better to just kind of go get a young guy out of high school or find someone that has been proven. So when you don't get a chance to get on the field in college, it's hard to even put that option in front of players like, hey man, stick it out and drive it through, because each year, regardless if you get pushed out because of scholarship limits or you tend to jump in the portal, like the longer you play in college football without any film, like your value is gone and you'll just probably won't play football ever again. So it's quite interesting with that whole situation, because I think a lot of guys just don't know exactly where their value is and where they're best at. But when guys are jumping in the portal, I think they see the writing on the wall, especially coming out of spring ball, and you see who's performing and who's not.
And we understood Tom Allen wants to run a 4-2-5 defense, has talked a lot about having three safeties out there. Jalen Reed sounds like he's going to be an every snap type of player, but even still, the ability of KJ Winston and Jalen Reed would keep King Mack off the field. I get it. It's just, again, this whole era of the portal, and throw NIL into the mix, in the fact that it's like he's a sophomore and he jumped into the portal. And it's just, I understand the impatience there and wanting to get on the field. You wonder if there was an offer that sounded good to him, something like that. But it's a disappointment, and it's also it is something to think about in 2025 for Penn State in terms of the depth at safety all of a sudden.
Well, sure. And then they have their recruiting class that's coming in this summer. I'm sure they have guys that come in there, but it's like it's interesting when you're filling up your roster from different areas like transfer portal, recruiting from high school, and you're dealing with even the safeties that are coming up now. They're you talk about three pretty experienced guys, and if you want to come up from a younger guy and he wants to jump into the portal, it's quite interesting that, again, it's interesting seeing where Will King Mack will land, right? Because you say if there's an offer there, like if he goes like to a smaller school, it just shows that like, okay, what's the situation? We see what's going on out in Colorado with the corner. He was the number one corner that came out, McLean, I think, and I don't think he's found a place to land yet. And then even the schools that you're looking for, like, weren't comparable to Colorado. So he essentially went to Colorado, hurt his value a little bit, and now he's trying to figure it out. So like there's certain mechanisms in this whole transfer portal that are new because they're front facing. But let's not get it twisted that people have been getting pushed out of programs forever. Like I personally kept a bump list of like, okay, these are the guys that are on the brim of we need to push out, whether they've been here 3 years or they're not progressing, not doing exactly what we need to do. We need this position or this scholarship. Like that's kind of been under the rug in college football or college sports forever. They always tell the guys like, hey, it's a year-to-year contract. Now with NIL, it just shows when the guys have more, I guess, personal responsibility or personal say in jumping into the portal or leaving. It seems like it's just more haywire, or when guys get pushed out, it's like, hey, this is the other side. But it's a mechanism. And it's like, again, it's a contract in the sense of you have something to provide the school has something to provide you. If it doesn't work out, try to make it work somewhere else.
Also hopping into the portal, wide receiver Malik McClain. So that's now 3 wide receivers Penn State has seen go into the portal during the cycle. Um, Malik is another kind of head scratcher to me, in that transferred from Florida State last offseason. Him and Dante Cephas came in at the exact same time. Cephas is out, off to Kansas State, and now you have Malik McClain into the portal. McLean, limited opportunities this past year. You could tell was still learning and had multiple years of eligibility. So he was never brought in as somebody that was going to start immediately necessarily. Big bodied guy, 6'4", 220, 230 pounds, roughly somewhere in that neighborhood. But Justin, I watched him play in the blue-white game, and I was like, this is a big guy that doesn't know he's a big guy. It's go up and I'll never forget the little pass into the corner that was supposed to be a 50-50 jump ball. I forget the corner that was covering him, but McLean had the size on him, and McLean just creates a basket with his hands and is just waiting for the ball to come to him. The corner beats him just by sheer positioning, as opposed to leaping ability, athleticism, arm length, like all these things that they teach you of go up and high point the football. And I'm like, there's a lot of work to be done here. And on top of that, you're in a pile of 4 wide receivers that are logjam potentially at that number 3 spot of Liam Clifford, Omari Evans, Caden Saunders, and Malik McClain was on that short list. Now, all of a sudden, that opens things up. What do you think about McClain's decision to leave? And what do you think about the wide receiver room now that Keandre Lambert-Smith, Mega, and McClain are all gone?
Man, it's interesting. I think because when you have a new offensive coordinator, you always tend to see offensive guys jump in the portal, just in the sense of whether they fit in the offense. And then again, like if you're not, like you're pointing out some things where it's like, hey, he's not acting like a big receiver in the sense of his ball judging skills. Is, maybe it's not a fit. And then you see again where he was moved and how much action he was getting in the spring, and how Andy was kind of calling plays or different things he was running. I was like, all right, maybe this isn't a fit. And when you have a new coordinator, it's not like you're going to argue with his system coming in, especially when you're not an established guy. So I think everybody in this day and age of college football is trying to find a way to get onto the football field.
And also for McClain, that would have been 3 systems in less than 2 years. Florida State, Mike Yursich, and now Andy Kotelnicki. Like that's a lot of turnover. That's crazy.
100%. That's hard to, and it's hard to play fast when you're processing all the different information, whether it from terminology, or even if football concepts are the same, and just environments, different people calling the plays. It's interesting, different quarterbacks.
In terms of the wide receiver room that's remaining, there are already concerns. There's talk, coming out of the program potentially that they would look into the portal for a number 1 during this cycle. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't necessarily think there's somebody in the portal right now that Penn State could go get that would really change things. So you have Trey Wallace, Julian Fleming, Liam Clifford, Omari Evans, Caden Saunders as your top 5 wide receivers. Are you more concerned now, or is it just kind of you feel similarly about the room as you did before?
I feel the same. I feel the same. I don't know who the top receiver is out there, but I don't know if we would be willing to pay whatever that costs for like a bona fide change the dynamic of the offense and one play type of guy in May. You know what I mean? I just don't know. That's I hope so. We got to roll what we have, and hopefully everybody kind of steps up their game and continues to improve this offseason.
Yeah, we'll see about that. So that's what's up at wide receiver. And then the running back position, I think, is next most interesting in terms of departure. Let's start with London Montgomery. Another guy, again, deeper on the depth chart. You know what you're getting with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And then as we saw during the blue-white game, Quentin Martin Jr., who you've spoken very highly of, and also Cam Wallace, played very well at running back. And granted, it's a blue-white game, but they did very well in that altogether. London Montgomery, probably that 4th or 5th tailback altogether. Same thing, David Kency Jr., deep on the depth chart. So you understand Kency departing. But Montgomery was a guy who had some buzz coming to Penn State, and also, like King Mack, very young dude into the portal super early.
Again, got to figure out a way to get on the football field. And especially when you see like the production in the spring, like he wasn't a guy that was kind of brought up a lot from just sparking or showing some flair. And when it's really delicate, I hate to just beat a dead horse with the coaching change. When a new guy comes in and he's not showing you any type of attention, if that's the case, and I have like a window to figure out when to get on the field, that's where it's just a hard thing to push through unless you're just banking on someone to get hurt. Or I mean, if you say you can beat out the 2, 3 running backs in front of you, I mean, in theory, but we understand how the business operates. And so when you see those type of situations, there's an option to jump in the transfer portal. So like, I mean, if there wasn't free agency in the NFL, a lot of players would jump in to free agency if they could when a coaching change happened, right? Just based on how situations occur and just who their preferred coach is or offense that you want to play in. So I mean, the transfer portal is so fluid, but yet it's not new in the sense of like guys getting pushed out, especially at this frame. Because I think a lot of guys that you're naming some younger guys, but I think there's a sense of them being out recruited or out talent evaluate or out talent acquisition. I mean, not even recruited because you're getting guys from the transfer portal. I think change the dynamic of your situation, but yeah, sometimes when you get out recruited, those guys were the ones that used to transfer back in the day. Like when I'm saying like all the fundamentals of when someone would transfer kind of still holds true, right? Like, okay, I come in, there's a freshman that comes in behind me, he beats me out. Now I'm playing behind a freshman. I gotta leave. You know what I mean? Like these are still some of the real dynamics that are happening. So yeah, maybe you're getting pushed out, but sometimes when you get pushed out, you kind of pushed yourself out at one point.
Last but not least, and no disrespect, offensive lineman Golden Israel-Achumba, who is about 6'6", 330 pounds, has been a backup guy, has earned developmental squad honors in the past as somebody who has had all Big Ten academic honors, redshirt junior. I believe he walked as a part of senior day this past year. So he's obviously putting his time in the classroom as a part of the program, but just didn't see the field. He's into the transfer portal. You always say it, people want to collect big people. So hopefully Israel-Achumba gets picked up somewhere. He was a guy who came in 2019, so he's going to have a COVID year. And that's the interesting thing is that now we're talking about these younger players who are not going to have that, call it benefit of that COVID year. And you and I were talking about, the NFL is taking these more experienced guys, and part of that is the guys that stuck around because of COVID and utilized that extra year, but then the wave of NIL was right behind it. We're just living in this very interesting time, and we're slowly getting past these players that are still in school that are benefiting from the COVID year. So like things will kind of get back to normal, so to speak. But still, this transfer portal era, this NIL era, if there's going to be binding contracts in the near future, that's something that's been really ramped up in terms of the bowl season director was talking about that recently. So there's just all sorts of opportunities, and it's about getting on the field. It's like it's the inverse of what you and I talked about post draft, is that it's like, man, if you're a player who is a starter and maybe another year of starting could do you some good, get that tape, get that experience. But damn, if you're not seeing the field, you got to find some grass somewhere.
Yeah, and it's part, and I think it's part of your strategy too as a player when you're coming in. It's like, all right, when do I hop in the portal? Because I mean, sometimes you want to give yourself a year buffer of working on what you need to work on, trying to get on film, and when you do get on film, like you're highlighting certain things. It really is on the NFL mindset of, I mean, we're all independent contractors at this standpoint, right? And so you have to make sure that your resume of film is up to standard whenever that time comes, if it comes or when it comes, or if you are pushed to go into the portal or open market. What are people looking at as your evidence of impact or evidence of the ability to play at whatever level, right? And so I think that is the rush to fill up that tank, not even just being at the biggest school, whether it's like the top quarterbacks that are coming out of high school now. It's like, you got to get on the field, like, because you want to develop and get that snap count up, whether it's at a G5 school or something like a top flight offensive coordinator, and just you want to get the reps in. And I think that's across the board. We've seen it with the NFL draft. Like a Toledo corner went before Alabama corner, so it's not necessarily about like what school you're coming from. We're still dealing with individuals here.
And ironically, Nick Saban wanted that Toledo corner. So there you go.
There you go.
To wrap up, how does this exodus, that's a big word all for this altogether, but like 8 players into the portal in this cycle is not nothing. How does this look for Penn State football?
I mean, it looks bad, I guess, from a knee-jerk reaction, but in the sense of if you look at it under the initial layer of every situation, it essentially it makes sense to me. And in this time of the year, I don't think it's detrimental because none of these guys were. I mean, besides Keandre Lambert, he even had a question mark going into next year. Like he was somebody that had high expectations, and he kind of he was decent. He has a lot of high traits, and I mean, that could be taken on the open market, but and I mean, went to Auburn, but the rest of the situations that are jumping into the portal, it's just the day and age that
There
we're
are,
living in. That's
I
kind of where
agree, and the bulk of them are not surprises because they are
right.
guys that are deeper on the depth chart. Some of them because of just how brief their stay was in State College, it's a surprise. But in terms of the overall hit to what the team is going to be on the field in 2024, I think right now it feels minimal. Time will tell. In the end, I think it's the timing that looks bad more than anything. The fact that 5 guys went into the portal in the span of like an hour, allegedly, I granted, and these are guys that filed Tuesday, so the news just happened to break on Thursday. So the fact that it hit very, very quickly, I think fans are processing it that way of like, oh my God.
No, 100%. I think that's definitely a major piece of it. Like you said, the news breaking at that standpoint. But again, it's the day and age that we live in with the transfer portal in the sense of like guys jumping in at this point. And I don't think it's bad to Penn State. And when we think of just how they've been with just the talent acquisition and just recruiting, it has been pretty smooth. And if they were losing like again another starter or something of that nature, then you can be like, oh, this looks crazy. But I don't think it's means too much, but it does look wild when it initially happens.
Time will tell. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and rate us. Thank you all for tuning in. Hop in the comment section, please, and get at us on social media and tell us what you think of Penn State's quote-unquote exodus into the transfer portal.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, let us know what you think of the show on social media and check out all of our content on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Search for the handle @StateOfStatePod. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.